A group of people watches footage of a courtroom trial. The accused is brought in, and some of the group immediately form beliefs about her guilt or innocence based purely on her appearance. As the trial continues, people form beliefs based on other factors. When all the evidence has been presented and closing statements have been made, several of the group, despite paying careful attention to the proceedings, still haven't formed a belief about whether the accused is guilty or not guilty. It's often demanded of us that for a given statement X, we must arrive at a belief that the statement is either true or false. But this idea needs to be challenged. The truth or falsity of a statement may be indeterminate, for example, and we may have no reason or motivation to form a belief either way. Just because a statement could be true or false, it's not inevitable or even necessarily desirable that we form a belief one way or the other. As Yale professor William Graham Sumner observed in 1906, men educated in the critical habit of thought are slow to believe. They can hold things as possible or probable in all degrees without certainty and without pain. Merely having a belief is no indicator of how carefully you've thought about something. People form superficial and false beliefs all the time. Having beliefs grants no one privileged status, nor is there any special reason for the acquisition of beliefs to be a particular goal. When scientists construct theories, for example, the aim isn't for people to form beliefs about them being true. It's to account for available data with a model that has the greatest explanatory and predictive power. There's more than one way to lack belief in someone's guilt. You may believe they're not guilty, you may not believe one way or the other. And there's more than one way to lack belief in the existence of a supreme God. You might have formed a belief that no such being exists, you might have formed no belief either way. Demanding that people believe such a being either exists or doesn't exist is a symptom of flawed black and white thinking. Non-belief either way is often confused with agnosticism, but agnosticism isn't about belief or non-belief, it concerns knowledge. An agnostic is someone who holds the view that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of a proposed phenomenon, in this case a God. It's perfectly possible to hold this view while believing there is a God, believing there's none, or having no belief either way. Agnosticism isn't some middle ground between believing X and believing not X. It's an independent category compatible with belief or non-belief. Some people, and even certain otherwise respectable dictionaries, define atheism as the belief that there is no God with a capital G. But this definition cannot be adequate, as it would also apply to certain polytheists who believe there's no supreme God. The dominance of monotheistic religions has left many people with a tendency to forget that one God or none are not the only two options. But even with a monotheistic approach there are complications, because the word God can mean billions of different things. This is why I don't identify as a particular kind of atheist, because no subcategory of atheism reflects my attitude towards every God concept put to me. If you made the claim God exists, and by the word God you meant a single supernatural being that created our universe, I'd reject your claim as irresolvable, because no procedure available to us could reliably establish the existence or non-existence of such an unscientific entity. If, on the other hand, you meant the biblical God, I'd reject your claim not just as irresolvable, but demonstrably false. Taking just two of the many problematic qualities we're asked to accept about the biblical God, no being can be regarded as perfect if it needs to be worshipped. A perfect being would by definition have no deficiency. It would need nothing, and certainly have no use for worship. These qualities are incompatible. If there is a God, it's not the multi-self-refuting biblical God. Because my response to theistic claims differs according to the claim, and I can never know how it will differ until the particular claim is made, the category that describes me in the simplest terms is the basic atheist category of lack of belief. I lack belief in gods, and all that means is that gods don't feature among the things I believe exist. There's the most extraordinary resistance among some people to recognizing this definition of atheism. Many insist it should instead be defined as the belief that no gods exist, because they want to make it seem like a position of faith. Clearly, if you feel at a disadvantage because your beliefs are faith-based and insupportable by logic or evidence, then pretending that those who lack your belief also have a faith-based position is a much easier option than facing up to the burden of proof you give yourself when you insist others believe as you do. But one doesn't have to believe no gods exist to recognize and expose theistic claims as indefensible. Say we have two people, both of whom debunk every theistic claim put to them. One believes there are no gods, the other is simply unconvinced. Either way, the claims are debunked. Even if atheism was redefined as the belief that no gods exist, there'd still be the same non-believers outside that category dismantling theistic claims. Defenders of theism who fixate on strong atheists are either misidentifying or trying to distract attention from their real problem, that their claims have no valid foundation and consistently collapse under critical scrutiny. Some have complained atheism can't be a lack of belief in gods, or we'd have to class rocks and dogs as atheists. Rocks and dogs? Really? It's a measure of the loss of perspective that happens around the subject of atheism that statements as puerile as these are made. If you had a big family celebration and I said, look around and tell me which ones aren't married, would you need me to specify that I was talking about people in order to stop you listing items of furniture and family pets? Those who can't approach discussion with a basic level of intelligence and maturity shouldn't expect to be taken seriously. Besides, the suffix ist is used and understood to denote a personal noun. That said, while there's no point applying the term atheist to things that lack the cognitive capacity to grasp the ideas involved, it can be useful to remember that none of us start life with a belief in any gods. A lack of belief in gods is the default position. That's not to say the default position is always preferable. After all, the default position is a complete lack of coherent understanding of our universe. But it is a reminder that in the marketplace of ideas, when you want to move people away from their default lack of belief towards your belief, it's you, not they, who has to provide justification. If you want people to believe that any gods exist, the burden of proof is on you, not on those who are simply skeptical of your claim. Some have tried to claim one cannot lack belief in gods, because one needs to believe something about gods in order to reject them. Of all the convoluted attempts to resist recognizing atheism as a lack of belief, this is one of the most deeply confused. Replacing the term gods with other terms shows up the absurdity of the claim. If this form of argument were valid, we'd have to believe in everything whose existence we reject. I reject theistic claims. I worked out as a child that if there were any gods, none of them were bothered about using their supposedly awesome powers to provide direct, dramatic evidence of their existence. Without evidence from gods themselves, it's only the claims of human beings that insist I take the existence of gods seriously, and I can reject those on the basis of defective reasoning, defective definitions, or lack of evidence. I don't have to believe anything about gods. Some have complained that defining atheism as a lack of belief says next to nothing about the atheist's attitudes, but then someone saying they're a theist also says next to nothing. Given the potentially infinite variety of things people might mean by gods, a statement of lack of belief or belief in them will be fairly basic in the first instance. People have enormously diverse reasons for not believing in gods. It's unrealistic to expect those reasons to be distilled in the definition of a single word. If hearing someone's an atheist doesn't tell you all you want to know, why not ask them more questions? Of course, not every atheist will find another conversation about gods a worthwhile use of their time, especially if you're not the first to bring up the subject that day. Some theists who are determined for atheism to mean more than a lack of belief note how fervent some atheists are in discussion and point out that fervency doesn't just come from a lack of belief. No, it doesn't. A great deal of fervency is a response to the hostility directed at us simply for not believing in gods, to being condemned, criticised, marginalised and dehumanised by people who are unwilling to allow us to live our lives, who impugn our morality, who tell us we don't belong in the country in which we were born, who distort our education, attempt to monopolise government, and ostracise us for not participating in their rituals. Treat any group of people with such profound disrespect, and it would be surprising not to see fervency from some of them. Fervency is not a result of simply being an atheist, but nor is it solely a response to the disgusting manner in which atheists are treated. It also comes from a wider sense of injustice at the way human beings are being treated around the world, how church leaders are invoking baseless religious privileges to keep the details of child sexual abuse cases secret, how children are dying from torture and neglect after being branded as witches and demon-possessed, how adulterers are being stoned to death, gay people are being hanged, and other barbaric acts are being committed, all in the name of an entity whose basic existence can't be demonstrated. If we were all to witness an ancient scene of human sacrifices being carried out to appease a sun god, which of us would not see the dangerous ignorance in that bloody reasoning? It is grimly surreal to me as an atheist to find myself on a planet where so much wisdom is available, but on which people are still killing people in the name of gods. As an atheist, I'm free to see that when human beings behave abusively, they cannot justify their abuse by claiming it's what any god wants. They are accountable for their choices. Now that we've learned how to destroy all life on our planet, we can no longer afford to indulge in the comforts and rationalizations of magical thinking. With power comes responsibility, but equally with responsibility comes power. When we lack belief in gods, we're free to recognize that we alone fill our world with love and compassion or fear and violence, and that the solution to our problems lie in no hands but yours and mine.